Okay, it's right after 6. I think we should get going on this. I know a lot of people are anxious. Tonight is going to be the Chief Lyons show. For those who know Chief Lyons, he's got a long set of credentials, and he's 29 years in the law enforcement industry. Started out in 1994 with the United States Army Military Police. Since becoming chief of police, and we're very fortunate to have him, he served prior to that with the Castle Rock Department. He was the operations commander. He served 15 years in Florida, where he rose to the rank of lieutenant. Commander Lyons received an associate law enforcement degree from St. Petersburg College, a bachelor's in administration and criminal justice. And he also received a Master's of Justice Administration degree from Norwich University. One cool thing about Jason, or Chief Lyons, is he teaches supervisor, command, and executive leadership nationally for the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. This is a nonprofit arm of the FBI. It's quite an honor to have somebody of that caliber here in this city. And I just wanted to make note of that because it is something that I know Jason takes dear to heart, that he's able to teach not only his staff, but throughout the country. Jason holds memberships in the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association, the FBI National Academy Association, the International Association of Chief of Police, Colorado Association of Chief of Police, and I could keep going on for his accreditation. But for a city of this size to have somebody of his caliber, we're very fortunate. And without that, I want to introduce Chief Lyons and let him run the show. And by the way, my name is Jim Thorson. I'm the interim city manager. I'm here for a year, while Chris Kramer, who's your normal city manager, is out on a hiatus. And if anybody remembers, I was here from 2016 to 2020 as your city manager. And prior to that, I was city manager of Malibu, California for 10 years. So we've got a little bit of experience, but Chief is way above mine. So with that, Chief.
All right, well, good evening. For what it's worth, I'm not much of a podium guy, but apparently the speakers were connected to it. So if I stand here a little too long, just throw something at me. I'll try to kind of move around the room, is left of our room. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming, and particularly in such short notice. This was decided yesterday that I really needed to kind of get in front of you and talk about what's going on in the village, particularly around the most recent crime spree, and have some conversation around that. And to be able to pull that together in 24 hours and have this many people show up, it says a lot. So thank you for that. One of my favorite things about this city is your sense of community. You care about crime, you care about safety, and you care about your neighbors. And I think that really speaks to the character of this community in particular. And on behalf of our entire organization, I thank you for that. It really goes a long way. As Jim mentioned, my name is Jason Lyons, and I am your Chief of Police. I do want to welcome a few or introduce a few of my staff members. Here in front of me is our operations commander, Brendan Leninger. Directly behind him is Detective Jeremy Gunther. He is the one that is assigned these cases that we're currently investigating. Officer Nicole Ward, Sergeant Noah Rolfing. He oversees our special operations unit, which includes school resource investigations and our community partnership team, as well as our traffic unit. I know she was here somewhere, but Officer Nikki Troncoso, she left. She is our community partnership officer. Her job is to liaise with the HOAs to put into place crime prevention strategies, our community programs, and our community engagement. So should there be any questions at the end, and I'm sure that there will be, I may ask for some of those folks to jump in and give a response if it's warranted. So whatever that is worth. Thank you guys for being here. So here's, I think, what I would like to do as far as our format goes tonight. I'll start with a quick presentation and just kind of frame or contextualize crime, the concept of crime, crime as it relates to Cherry Hills Village, which I think is why you all are here. Just as a year-to-date kind of purview of what we're dealing with, and perhaps as equally as important, what we're not dealing with. And then I'll kind of segue into what has probably brought us all here, which is the events over the last couple days, the ones that have hit social media. We did a press release on it, and really the things that are concerning to all of us, myself included. Then I'll wrap up with some crime prevention tips and strategies, and then open it up to Q&A, if that works for everybody. So what I'd ask is, if you have any questions, if you can, just kind of pause to the end, just in case I might have the opportunity to answer it during my presentation. Yeah, this is where I don't like to stand behind, but first thing I want to kind of touch on is, how is crime analyzed? And it's important to recognize that crime happens in a lot of different ways. And the reporting of crime happens in a lot of different ways. We get a variety of incidents that occur. So individual events, and we have sort of this raw number around crime. And that is important for us to evaluate, but crime ebbs and flows over time. I'll give you an example. We had 0 crime in the city. And one day, somebody ran across the street into our city and stole a basketball out of somebody's yard. We would see 100% increase in theft, right? So just to sort of contextualize statistics, it's important to recognize that the events are something that we look at, but it's the pattern of crime or the ratio of crime per citizens that we find more important. We call that the crime rate, or the rate of crime. It's defined as crimes in an area, the ratio of crimes in an area to the population of that area. So we assess crime per 1,000 people. And that is a benchmark across the United States as a way to kind of gauge where we're at compared to other jurisdictions, regardless of size. It's per 1,000 people. So I'll throw some stats up here in just a little bit, but when you see those statistics, just keep in mind, that is the ratio of crime per 1,000 people. Now, although we're a small community, somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 people, we don't compare ourselves necessarily to Denver. The type of crime, the demographic is different, but crimes per 1,000 can be applied across the board, right? Regardless of the size of jurisdiction and regardless of what state is reporting that crime. We use a survey called the Benchmark Cities data. There's 26 cities included in the benchmark, all different sizes from all over the United States. They submit their crime data. It becomes correlated and then published as a measurement tool to see how the police department might be performing in their given jurisdictions. It's a way for us to compare ourselves against the averages per 1,000 people. Does that make sense to everybody? Just to kind of, again, contextualize that. Various crime types. We have really kind of fall into 2 categories. Crimes against persons, or persons crimes. Those are sort of those violent type crimes. Examples might be homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, kidnapping, felony menacing, stalking, those things. Those things that are directed toward people. Those are called persons crimes. The next sort of stage of crimes is what we call property crimes. Those include things like burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft, what we call first-degree criminal trespass, or we kind of break into a car, arson, criminal mischief. Whereas the attack, if you will, the targeting is against property, not a person. So 2 areas of crime, 2 types of crime to kind of keep in the back of your mind as we advance forward a little bit. Here are our crimes over year to date, January 1 through the first weekend in August. You'll see that we have almost no violent crime, almost no persons crimes whatsoever. I'll draw your attention to the 2 aggravated assaults and just kind of touch on that because that can be a little jarring. Both of those are from road rages, one on Hamden and one on Bellevue, by people who do not live in our community. So road rage incident, somebody pulled a knife and showed it through the window, and somebody actually fired rounds at a passing vehicle on Hamden. This was earlier in the year. So just to contextualize again, those 2, the rest are 0, by the way, as you'll see. So when I go around and I talk about how safe this community is, and I know it doesn't feel like that this week, I'm sensitive to it. It is among the safest cities in the entire state, statistically, if nothing else. Almost no crimes against persons. Now, is that to say that we've never had crimes against persons? Certainly not, right? Because remember, crime ebbs and it flows. But we're looking at the rate of crime year over year. And this analysis is year to date from January 1. The other category, slightly different, property crime. And you will see that we are below benchmarks on more than half of the identified property crimes. We are up slightly in burglary, and we are up slightly in vehicle trespass. So let me give you some context as to what those crimes mean. So I hear this a lot, and this isn't unique to Cherry Hills Village. Some will tell their neighbor that they were robbed last night because their garage was broken into. And I want to just be clear. And you don't ever have to get this right, because I know the answer. Robbery is not what occurred. Robbery is directed to a person. What happened is a burglary, and those things sometimes are used synonymously. Burglary is a big deal for us as a community. It is a Part 1 crime. It is a felony. And we've had our fair share of those year to date. You'll see that we've had 20 of them. The other area that is up statistically is what we call first-degree criminal trespass or vehicle trespass. Some states call it an auto burglary. Basically, going into a vehicle with the intent to commit another crime while you're in there. Someone breaks into your car and steals a laptop or steals 35 cents worth of change. It doesn't really matter. It's that you entered another person's vehicle to steal, essentially, to commit any other crime therein. That's called a vehicle trespass. And we are up, and that is concerning for me as someone who is tasked with keeping this community safe. Any change in statistical data, increase in particular, over those benchmarks in any category is of concern. I do want to draw your attention to some notes I put at the bottom, just for context. Of the 20 burglaries that we had year to date, 79% of those occurred to unlocked dwellings. 79% were open doors, unlocked doors. In terms of vehicle trespass, total, 65% were unlocked doors. Now, we had 7 of those occur one day at the Brave Church. So I'll back that out just again for context. Taking those out of the equation, and those were forced entry. Taking those out of the equation, 80% of our vehicle trespasses were unlocked vehicle doors. Auto theft, although below benchmarks, 5 is too many. 80% of those, 4 out of the 5 reported to us this year, had the keys left inside the vehicle. So here's what I ask you as we drive forward. This, for what it's worth, this is no admonishment on our residents. Sadly, this is true in nearly every community across the United States. It's just, it is what it is. Now, here's the double-edged sword, right? So we want to provide an environment where you feel safe and secure. In fact, if you look at my strategic plan, you will find my number 1 priority is to reduce crime and the fear of crime. You feeling safe in your community is my number 1 priority, and is the priority of every member of my organization, period. Thank you. It really is. It is my number 1 priority, and it kills me to think that we have people who live in this city who do not feel safe. I get it. I understand why, particularly of events of late. I understand it. But it is still a remarkably safe community. I need our community to meet us halfway on this. Imagine what our statistics might look like if we locked some doors. Again, please don't think I'm admonishing, because I'm not. Every organization, I know, every chief that I talk to on a daily basis, as Jen mentioned, I get the good fortune of traveling around the United States. Once a month, I'm in a different city, a different state, fully immersed in other organizations, and they're dealing with the same issues. So no admonishment at Cherry Hills. So just kind of going back, in 1829, so nearly 200 years ago, Sir Robert Peel established what we now know as modern law enforcement. In 1829, he published a summary of principles that are aptly called the Peelian Principles. And among those Peelian Principles, it says the public are the police and the police are the public, which means that policing is a collaborative endeavor. You have to do your part. We're tasked with doing our part, and we need to hold bad guys responsible for what's happening in communities all over Colorado, all over the United States. This isn't a you thing. This isn't an us thing. This is a bad guy thing. We can certainly mitigate opportunity. Just sort of talking about property crimes. They're called crimes of opportunity. The only way to really reduce that is to mitigate the opportunity. And we can do that simply by a few crime prevention strategies that I'll touch on at the end, but just kind of locking our doors, being good neighbors, turning your exterior lights on, not leaving loaded weapons in your car at night. These things would go a long way in helping us help you. I'll just kind of cover 3 types of criminal activity. It's a crime trend, a crime pattern, and a crime spree. And they each have a different meaning. They're, again, sort of used synonymously, but they do have a different meaning. A crime trend is defined as a significant change in the nature of selected crime types within a defined geographical area and time period. It is the measure of significant changes in an area's crime pattern over time. What we are dealing with and what we dealt with recently over the last couple of days is not a crime trend. This is not happening on the regular here in Cherry Hills Village, where people are breaking into homes and breaking into cars and stealing vehicles while walking down the street armed. This is not a trend in our city as a general rule. It happened, but it is not a trend where we are able to predict its next move. A crime pattern is a group of 2 or more crimes reported to be discovered by police, that are unique because they meet the following conditions. Essentially, that they happen in the same kind of area, they have common factors, same kind of modus operandi or method of operation, same kind of suspects, same kind of property taken, those kinds of things. Now, what we're going to talk about here next, which is what happened over the last couple days, regionally is considered a crime pattern. The pictures that you saw, perhaps the video that you saw, that group has targeted areas from Longmont to Castle Rock. My own neighborhood included 2 nights ago. They are prolific. They are affecting a lot of communities. Unfortunately, Cherry Hills was one of them. There's a pattern on a geographic or regional stage. More specific to Cherry Hills Village is that we had a crime spree. So 2 or more of the same crimes committed by the same offender or offenders without a cooling off period. Essentially what happened is this group of bad guys came in, they hit us hard, and they left. That is a crime spree. And although those crimes affect our crime rate, it is important to keep in mind that crime ebbs and flows. It is not indicative of a trend that we're seeing. This type of crime, these type of bad guys rising to this level. It is a spree that occurred. Not that I expect that's going to make you feel any better about what happened over the last couple of days. 1 is too many. But I do need you to understand crime as a concept and how it is affecting your community. It really is important to me that we have sort of this. I will wrap up sort of prevention tips, and then I'll open it up to Q&A. I'm trying to be respectful of your times, but if I'm talking too fast, just say something to me. If anyone knows me, they know I won't typically shut up. So, but I don't want to keep you here all night. These are some basic crime tips that we push out to everybody. First is to remove your keys and valuables from your vehicle at night. Second is to lock your vehicle doors. It goes a long way. We've showed that statistically. Close your garage door. Close and lock exterior doors to your home. Turn on your exterior lights and report any suspicious people or vehicles in your neighborhood. And I just want to wrap up my presentation by saying, again, there's this kind of double-edged sword. We want you to feel safe. I love that most of you do on a given day. But at the same time, it's important to remember that even Cherry Hills Village is not immune from these types of crimes occurring. Your police department is ready and prepared, trained and equipped to deal with this situation when it arises. Some structural changes within the organization that you should know about. In January, we shifted to a 12-hour shift patrol model. And the reason for that, certainly not to keep our folks here any longer than is necessary. A 12-hour shift is a long shift. But what that allowed us to do is increase our staffing on each patrol shift and create what we call a relief factor. Most of our patrol shifts were staffed by 2 people on any given day, on any given shift. The old methodology of patrol staffing was that it was based on calls for service. And so at night, what you would find in many organizations across the country is they would reduce the number of officers on night shifts because the call volume was down. But here's the truth. In our community, most of the crimes are occurring at night. And so it makes more sense to me to have our resources spread out over 24 hours than it is to reduce our staff at night when the crimes are occurring, just to increase it during the day when it's being reported. It doesn't make a ton of sense. The other issue that we were facing is that we had no supervision on the night shift, none, which is when we typically would have our newer officers, and the likelihood that something might kind of go sideways happens on this night shift. We had no supervision. So the push for the 12-hour shifts was to increase our staff. Now on paper, we were able to go from 2 to 4, double the amount of officers per shift. Our minimum staffing is 3, so sometimes between vacations and training and sick time, we might, and often do, run at 3. But it's better than the 1 or 2 that it would have been. We've implemented a tremendous amount of technology in the city over the last year, crime prevention technology. You've seen perhaps some of the cameras around, what we call ALPR, automated license plate reading cameras. It's a system that we use called Flock. We have 24 cameras in the city now that we have access to. We will have another 3 coming online soon that the city has funded that just aren't in the ground yet. So that'll put us at 27. I'm asking for a few more in my next year's budget. That would put us at 32. And that includes our partnership with many of the HOAs who fund and have installed those cameras and given us access to it. Now, just to kind of put this in perspective, on a given week, just our 7 city-funded cameras, identified as my cameras in the system, just those 7, we have around 150 wanted vehicles or people passing those cameras every week in Cherry Hills Village. Quick math, 600 a month. Now, context, some of those are erroneous, some of them are bad hits, some of them are wanted people that aren't going to be extradited. A lot of them are stolen license plates where maybe it's the front plate only, but the camera doesn't recognize the difference between a front plate and a rear plate. We're also seeing daily stolen vehicles coming through our city. Now, this isn't something new, right? We have the technology to now see it. There's no more or no less stolen vehicles today than 24 months ago that are coming through our city. We just have applied technology so that we can work smarter rather than harder. And almost, I think nearly 100%, other than maybe one or two that we were able to apprehend physically. On those stolen vehicles, when we initiate a traffic stop and attempt an apprehension, they flee at a high rate of speed. That is a win for us. They're not going to jail that day, but we pushed them out of Cherry Hill Village. We pushed them out of your city before they could commit crimes here. It's like number 2 on the list of wins, right? Number 1 is that they go to jail. Number 2 is at least they're not here committing crimes and they can tell their buddies, don't go to Cherry Hill Village. That's kind of the hope. But in terms of sort of property crime, and this is true with nearly every other municipality, I don't authorize our officers to engage in a high-speed pursuit for property crime. I have the responsibility of balancing risk versus benefit. And to risk the inherent danger of injuring an innocent person or a family of people driving a car for a piece of property. Crazy, I'm not gonna lie, I like a good chase. I really do. It's my responsibility to balance that risk versus benefit, and I can't do it. I just can't do it. So we will push them out of our city as long as we can. We've also deployed some new technology, or in the process of deploying some new technology that it's called Stop Sticks. It's essentially a tire deflation device that allows us to disable a vehicle that intends to flee, flatten their tires, so that when they do pull over, we're all over them. They get out and decide to run on foot, we can do that all day long. It's different than chasing in a car. We've also deployed technology through the means of a drone. Just as of recent, we just had our pilots pass their pilot exams. So at night when you're asleep, we have a thermal imaging drone going over the city looking for people who are blocking our streets or driving in our neighborhoods that don't belong. That is the best level of protection that I can provide right now. I asked for a helicopter, they said no. That's a touchy subject. But just know that your police department is prepared, and we are doing our best. We've increased our training from 24 hours a year to 100. We've increased our ballistic opportunities with external vest carriers, secondary external vest carrier, ballistic helmets, all new weapon systems, all kinds of technology. And in advance of this happening in the last couple of days, these things were already in place, because it is obvious to me that this is an amazing community that demands a high level of service from their police department. And you have been getting it. But it doesn't mean that we're immune from bad guys coming in and targeting your residences or your vehicles. Okay, Q&A. Now, that took almost no time at all. I will, if it's okay, if you have a question, just say it loud enough so the masses can hear it. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's that part. No, you're right. You're right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for saying that. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. As you saw on social media following the press release, we were targeted, at least that night, and so were some other municipalities, but it occurred on 2 different nights. So Saturday night into Sunday morning, we had a series of events that occurred sort of kind of behind the police department here. Had a couple vehicles stolen. We had a residence or 2 broken into, and it was a spree, right? At that time, no indication that our suspects were armed. We didn't have the video that we have now. We didn't have photographs, but we knew some property crimes had occurred. We also knew sort of that it could be loosely affiliated to a group that we had been keeping an eye on. Now, mind you, I'll talk to the best of my ability on this, with the caveat that this is an ongoing criminal investigation that is gaining momentum. So I'm going to be very careful by sharing too many specifics, so that I don't mess with the integrity of our criminal investigation. So that happened Saturday night into Sunday morning. Reports were taken, information was delivered to our officers that this occurred. Monday night into Tuesday morning, the same group came back, targeting a similar area. This one is where we were able to get the photographs and the video that's been shared. Very concerning to you, I know. And honestly, should be. That's threatening behavior. It's concerning behavior. Equally concerning to me and my staff. When you have a number of suspects who are armed, and we know that, by the way, for what it's worth, that those weapons are real weapons. And we know that through a variety of investigative techniques. When those things occur, and it's really odd, I should mention this, most times people who commit property crime do not arm themselves in the commission of that crime. They usually, we've got, all kinds of statistical data to kind of support that, but usually they get out, they check some car doors, they move down the street, they find that victim of opportunity or that target of opportunity, and they take what they can quickly and they get out of town. That's the typical modus operandi, method of operation. It is unusual that people who are still targeting property have armed themselves. Now, you might remember that the same group was featured on the news several weeks ago by the Parker Police Department. This is a group, again, that has been hitting for a long time. I will tell you that how do I want to say this? There are investigative leads that are putting pressure on the people responsible for this. We know that our vehicles that were stolen from this city were used in other crimes as far away as Commerce City and Broomfield the following night. That's how we know they're related. And this group has hit from, as I mentioned, Longmont to Commerce City to Parker to Castle Rock to Aurora to us to Jefferson County, and they are all over the place.
How long has this been going on?
It's hard to say because what happens in these kinds of pattern crimes is until we're able to create an idea of who it is, no one is collaborating the initiatives. For a particular case, there is enough evidence to support that we know that this is the same group. And as such, the lead investigating agency happens to be the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, primarily because they have already effected one arrest. They have a lot of intelligence on the group. They have the investigative capacity to bring everyone together. The district attorneys are involved in a couple different judicial districts. There's a dozen law enforcement agencies involved in this. It is a big deal and it is a concerning deal, primarily because of how brazen these suspects are.
How did they get in? Did you come in from Quincy? They come in from Hampton?
I'd love to. I actually don't know. So we have, they're probably coming in a couple different ways. I mean, we have, without getting too many specifics, we have a community that has an HOA, and the HOA has Flock, these cameras that we discussed. And we have stolen vehicle leaving the community. Unfortunately for us, we didn't get the notice that it came in. It has an entrance camera and an exit camera. In fact, I've gone back and I like to say I'm an expert in Flock, but I'm really not an expert in anything technological. But I know the system pretty well. And I went back and looked at every single image that passed that camera and that car is not on it. It's like it just appeared. My suspicion is there was a glitch somewhere in the system. We have nearly every entrance and exit into the city covered by our LPR cameras. Not every single one, but nearly every single one. So I don't know how they're getting in. It is by vehicle. I don't know.
Vehicle to vehicle, is it SUV, is it a car?
Now, because they're all stolen. So it just depends on the flavor of the day.
How many were there? How many individuals?
Well, we have 4 on camera.
And then you said they hit like here, you also hit South Pole, where they hit?
Are you talking on the cameras or just crime wise?
The cameras, the recent one on Monday night.
So it was, we had one on Charlevoix. That was the community that was hit Saturday night where a vehicle was stolen. And Yeah, I'm sorry, he's just asking kind of what neighborhoods we're talking. It's Charlevoix, and then this area not necessarily a designated community, but near like it's Random Road and here, Mead Lane was the first Saturday and again Monday night into Tuesday morning. Now, mind you that these things are what's reported, right? And so we go off these reported crimes. And sometimes we get calls for service like suspicious activity. We respond to those. You're not going to find that on a statistical data sheet because we rate crime as an occurrence. So there's a lot of suspicious stuff that goes on. Again, this community is remarkably vigilant. We get called on people sitting in a parking lot too long, and I love that. I really do. Thank you for that. Your eyes are a force multiplier in this community. So again, as we kind of talk about the most recent events, just keep in mind, some of this information I'll have to keep close to the vest. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, can you tell us of the clock system, the technology that you have? Can all of us that have Nest or any other sort of camera, I was talking to Earl about this, can we connect somehow to your clock system so we can make it more of a general, bigger force that we can nail these bastards? Like that?
You can say it. I love that. I can't say it. So the answer is yes and no. Specifically to Flock, the answer is no. So that those camera systems are proprietary and they have license plate reader technology built into them. Now, we are examining a software product that allows you to subscribe to share any video from your home security system, like your Nest or your Ring. We don't monitor it, right? You just a clip of something like, hey, I saw this vehicle. You might want to know about it. That technology is continuously emerging, and we will be moving forward with some mechanism that allows you to do that. Because this community has a lot of personal home surveillance systems that we could, I think, have a return on the benefit for us. Yeah.
If this did become competitive, how would we notify them? Like, what's the process for us to know what's happening?
On an active shooter or just in general types of current crime?
No, with it's active shooter or with something like more wrong.
Yeah, there's a couple different things in place. So as you know, our police service is dispatched by Arapahoe County. Arapahoe County has what you might know as the reverse 911 system. There's a couple of them out there, Code Red, Everbridge. I'm not sure which one Arapahoe uses, but you can subscribe to it right on our website. You have to subscribe to it with your cell phone, your address, and a landline if you have it. And the way that message is delivered is the dispatcher or the call taker essentially draws an algorithm or draws a geofence around the area that we want notified. And then the system then essentially robocalls any subscribe number in that geographical area and sends a message that we've developed. And that might be like a shelter in place. It might be that we have a missing child, be on the lookout for this particular kid. It could be a lot of different things. It is the best way for us to notify you of emergency situations. Now, having said that, well, we currently just rolled out a platform and we'll be advertising this soon on a Power Engage, which allows, again, you to subscribe, give us your cell phone number, and I'll shoot you a text every night that reminds you to lock your doors, turn on your lights. I actually didn't mean that as a joke. I really will. It's dubbed as our 9 p.m. routine. So at 9 o'clock at night, should you want to hear from me, you'll get a message that says, hey, just a reminder, a friendly reminder from your police department, do these things. And then that same system that we were talking about that allows you to send your surveillance camera, that also has built into it ways for us to communicate via press release or mass text messaging with our community. Now, we haven't had it. We need something like that. We've recognized it. We're doing a demo on it now. We do tests and evaluations on things. It would have been great to have a week ago, right? But some of these technology implementations take longer than we would like, particularly in today's day and age. It's hard to get product from anywhere. But just know that I see a lot of hands. I'll try to do one at a time. just know that that stuff is coming and we really are rolling out any methodology we can to better connect with you. All right.
In the recent crime spree, did they go to locked cars or locked homes?
That's a great question. So the homes were unlocked primarily, and in a few cases, they took keys to get into locked vehicles. In some cases, the vehicle was left unlocked. We did have one victim who was hit both nights and had their two vehicles stolen. The second one, after being victimized before, this again, no admonishment, right? We sometimes just don't kind of think clearly on these kinds of things. After their vehicle was stolen, the insurance company gave them a rental car and they left the keys in that rental car with it unlocked. Please understand, I don't want you to think for a second that I'm picking on anybody. I'm telling you how these things occur, right? And sometimes we just get comfortable. We become complacent. And statistically, we know how that ends up.
Can I chime in real quick?
Of course you can.
Because we were home and these people tried to break into our home and it's locked up like Fort Knox. We have ring cameras, we have lights that come on. It did not deter these people. So they did not get into our house.
Well, actually, I want to applaud you because I think that is the deterrent.
Yeah, it is. And
Right.
we felt very good that we were not broken into. We
Yeah.
were
That's,
home,
that's,
and
that's our deterrent that we've done. I'd
Yeah.
like to hear about the deterrents from the city to prevent this, because I've heard about your stats, and I too have been in law enforcement federally and locally, and jokes are great, but that doesn't help my 9-year-old sleep at night.
Ask a question, sir.
What are you doing to make Cherry Hill the least popular place to commit crime?
at night.
Beyond all the things I outlined, doubling staff, increasing training, applying technology. Our crime analyst starts Monday. That we're this real-time information to the best of our ability will be.
Physical deterrents.
Let me just finish. You asked the question. Let me give you an opportunity to
He's
answer.
asking, what are you doing about this specific event? We get the big picture.
Okay, that's even a better question. That's an easier one for me to answer. As I mentioned, there are a dozen law enforcement agencies involved in this investigation, and I can't tell you where we're at in it, other than to say that it is perhaps among the greatest collaborative law enforcement efforts I've seen in this region in a long time. I can't even begin to tell you how many resources are on this, how much technology is being implemented from a global perspective to tie certain people to certain areas, certain times of day. We are not the lead investigative agency. We are sharing our information with Douglas County, who is, and the conversation is around, we're getting close. Now, just keeping this in mind, I want to caveat, because there's a good example, the news media is here in the back. I have to be very careful saying certain things that will then change the way our bad guys are doing business and throw us off course, right? This is an adaptation. The police department, in terms of just managing crime, is doing everything in the book to do that. It doesn't mean that we're invincible. It means that we're improving. We seek progress, not perfection. We're doing our best to keep you safe, to give you a sense of safety and security. And there's a lot that goes into that. And I appreciate your question. There's a lot that goes into it. In terms of this specific investigation, all I can really share with you without damaging the integrity of our investigation is that we are as deeply involved in it as we possibly can be. Since then, the last 72, 96 hours, we have increased our staff at night. We are deploying the drones. We're using undercover vehicles. We've got resources on standby like K9, emergency response. We're doing, if it's out there as a strategy in place, a known best practice strategy to mitigate crime, we are doing it. Now, there's a lot of hands. There's no way I'm going to go get you the order. So,
We were almost invaded on Saturday night. We didn't get even a patrol until Wednesday.
what community do you live in?
Charlotte.
Yeah, that's not true.
What's the average response
Are you
time?
kidding me?
Yes.
Here's the question I
Hey,
have.
one at a time. One at a time.
I have a question for
Hey,
you.
one at a time. I need to answer the gentleman's question. We did an analysis this morning because I met with members from Charlotte. Did you,
Cars last night.
then you know,
And every day since then, there were zero. And I know we're not praying for serendipity to dumb luck onto these apples. I'm asking, what are we doing to make this the least popular place to commit crime? and I haven't heard anything.
I live at 62 Charlotte Circle. Cops came by 4 times today.
Today.
Right,
And every,
I'm talking about our
twice,
street, I'm talking about our street,
No,
where
I
they
can't
have
answer, I can't answer. But they're there.
out of 6 houses.
Can I speak as someone?
I'm here, Mom.
And so, I would first like to applaud, Officer Smith and Detective Gunter. Left my back door unlocked accidentally, a door I don't normally use. We've been gone for 6 weeks, came back, didn't check that door when I went to bed, because we never use it. That was open, they came through the back door, they were in our house for all of 3 minutes, went into our garage, which is where I leave my purse, in my car. It's a locked garage in my mind, which is obvious. Every tip he gave you will protect all of us from it happening to you. They got into my car, they drove off, it was found later that afternoon in Aurora, with a stolen gun in it and some other stuff, but the police officers are doing a fantastic job. So we're pleased. I have 2 dogs and I sleep with my door wide open into the hallway. I never turn my alarm on at night because I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I've got 2 big dogs. I'll hear it, blah, blah, blah. Just now I don't. I locked myself out today because my dogs were off and I came back without my key and realized I don't have any door unlocked and I didn't have my phone either. So anyway, lock your doors, turn on your alarm, and don't leave purses or valuables. They opened every drawer in our kitchen looking for keys or wallets. Put them in your bedroom with you, and that's it. But you guys are doing a fantastic job, so thank you.
Thank you. Can I just point out one comment? So in particular with Charlevoix, and there's a lot of people from Charlevoix here, and I met with a handful of them this morning. And what they were told, and I, at request, pulled the statistics about our time in Charlotte. We spent 30 hours of uncommitted time, out there on calls, just driving through. 30 hours of uncommitted time before these crimes occurred over the last 30 days. We are patrolling nearly every street as often as we can. So to suggest that we're not going through a neighborhood that has been victimized at all in days, it would just be inaccurate. The statistics show it. Now, one at a time, Jen, go ahead.
My camera shows.
Question. You have talked about preparedness. You've touted the 12-hour shifts as having meet minimum staffing requirements, correct? So that's 4 people. On Monday night, when a resident's gun was stolen from their vehicle and used we see a resident's gun in that video, correct? Is that true?
There
I've
is
heard
a
that
well,
from some
yeah.
people.
So there was a gun stolen and there are guns in hands, whether it's the exact same one.
Okay, I heard yes from over here. So residents' guns are going to residents' houses with criminals. That's dangerous. And we all accept that. But the preparedness is that you talked about with these 12-hour shifts, Monday night, did you meet the minimum staffing requirements? How many officers were on duty?
There were 3 on duty. There are 4 assigned. And thank you for asking that question. So we had 1 officer on vacation and 1 officer who was teaching active shooter training. So he got off he's teaching yesterday actually, but so we adjusted his hours. He got off at midnight. There was a sergeant and 2 officers on, 3, one of which is in training. There were 3 officers on. Yes,
That's
sir.
not
With
true.
respect to all this,
Not at the time of the crime. It's not true.
Commander, would you like to address that?
Looking at the schedule and coming in
Were
at
they
6
in
o'clock
Cherry
that
Hill
next
Village?
morning. And talking with the officers as they were getting on, there were 3 officers on.
Sir?
with respect to all this, as the chief, how much would it help you if we had a bigger budget for staffing? So that would answer kind of a lot of these concerns.
No, thank you for asking that question. I'll just, a little story, and I'll make this very quick. My very first day here, day 1, I was told there's a meeting across the street with Charlevoix's HOA. And I always joke that Charlevoix is my favorite neighborhood because they were the first people I met when I got here. And that question was asked to me. I didn't know the answer at the time. To be totally fair and honest, I mean, there's no police chief in the world that's going to say, I couldn't use more people. And that would be great. Do I feel as though when we're fully staffed, and everybody is here. There's a staffing model. Do I feel like we're adequately staffed? The answer is yes. Would there be a benefit to having a police officer on every corner? The answer would obviously be yes. Now, for what that's worth, the city tasks me every year to evaluate budgetary needs moving forward. We really kind of focus on next year. And I have a 5-year plan in place where I sort of analyze what I think our needs are going to be moving forward. It's certainly possible that there may, at some point in the future, be a request for additional officers based on what that need is. To evaluate that need, however, and then to justify it to you as a taxpayer, it's incumbent upon me to develop strategies, information, statistics, to convince the city council that I need. Now, for what it is worth, our city council is remarkably responsive to the needs of this police department. It's unbelievable to me. And they've never said no to an ask. But I will always, and I'm not saying we're here yet, but I will always put my needs before my wants. And I need a little bit more information to justify the needs. It's a community, things are changing a little bit. And at some point, I suspect there will be an increase in staff. We have increased, not our patrol staff necessarily, in terms of raw numbers, but we have increased our authorized strength from 23 officers to 25 this last year. So we have increased by 2 officers. They're attached to the schools. They have a different responsibility. Can we get them back a little bit in the summer, at least in theory, when they're not doing camps, to help support our patrol operations? So it is an ongoing analysis on staffing. That is part of my responsibility.
Do you have access to Arapahoe County Patrol resources?
Upon request, if there were certain.
Would now be a good time to request?
Well, so no, and I'll tell you why. In my conversations with the sheriff, he struggles filling his own jurisdiction. Now I have been in constant contact, no fewer than 5 times today alone, with the Greenwood Village Police Department, with Inglewood Police Department. They have offered resources. Greenwood Village has offered canine services should we need them. They actually today put an LPR on Bellevue to give us a heads up should something come down Bellevue. We are working collaboratively with these folks. And just in terms of presence, we are doing that with our own staff, bringing people in from days to nights, bringing people from days off, come in, have nights. The commander came in at 2 o'clock this morning to support staff. We're managing that the best that we can. But again, we're fortunate in that we're the only fully staffed department in the area. So everyone is sort of struggling in terms of staff. But that is an evaluation, certainly.
So is there a reason to not take advantage of those resources from Greenwood Village and Inglewood?
All those resources are as needed requests.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Are you requesting them?
No, not at this time. Canines are only going to respond to a canine deployment request, as an example. We don't have that canine deployment request right now. Yes, ma'am.
So, first of all, we're grateful, and I hope you know that. And people are asking questions aggressively because we're grateful.
Yes.
So I understand that. But we're grateful. And we feel like we are very fortunate to live here with your doctor and taking care of the bad guys. I think what we're seeking, because it feels like they're giving us a little bit of a middle finger, giving you a little bit of a middle finger, having Reed and Random Road a few times. It seemed like they're very impervious to lights going on. They just seem like bad guys seem like they feel like they're not going to get caught. I think what we're seeking is some sort of table like, hey folks, we feel like we can get over the top of this. I feel like it's a spree that we're going to either catch them or it's going to stop. I think we're seeking more of a comfort feel from you because these guys seem like they're giving
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And I appreciate the sentiment in which you said it. And I do want to give you that sense. And I'm careful in choosing my words because what I don't want to say is necessarily how close we might be. This particular group and the number of people in this group has, as our intelligence information has come back to us, it's ebbing and flowing. They'll arrest a few, some more will go out, some more will come in. It's gone from all males to male, female. The age range is quite there's a lot of intelligence gathering. Here's what happens with these types of sprees, is as we get more information that help us do our job in a more effective way. And now a lot of that's around intelligence sharing, information sharing. Detective Gunther has spent all day, every day this week, working with the other dozen agencies on sharing pictures and bulletins and names and all these kinds of things. He's working on nothing but this case. My sense is sooner, now, I don't know how much comfort this is going to give you. My sense is this is going to get resolved. And we've gotten close so many times. This particular group rammed a patrol vehicle the other night in a different jurisdiction. And they chased them, and then, you know, the traffic got in the way, speeds got in the way, and they weren't able to apprehend them. Then another law enforcement agency picked them up, and they did what they could to them, and they ended up all the way up in Commerce City, and Commerce City chased them. I mean, it is going to occur. Right now, the luck has been on their side, but our investigative capability is literally growing every day. Our reach is getting closer each and every day. And I can see the other side of this, right? Well, one day more is one day too long. And I could not agree with you anymore. I wish that these folks were already in custody. I just have to assert that from a law enforcement capability, if there is a resource out there, it's being applied to this investigation.
Do you guys did the burglary at my house a year ago, a number of other houses, the Dancers, you know, how many people have had somebody break into their house, not their, okay, raise their hands, okay, in the last year or two?
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, mine was a year ago, July, okay, so, you think these guys relate to those guys?
I don't think so. We were, and on a federal level, just to kind of give you some context. I've been here just 15 months. And when I got here, there had already been a very specific type of burglary that was occurring. We had a few more after I got here. That has been tied to a Chilean gang, right? So these groups become quite organized. And again, and by the way, just because of my reach, that Chilean gang has hit jurisdictions all over the United States, not just Colorado, but they target specific kinds of neighborhoods, of which Cherry Hills falls into that demographic. They haven't, knock on wood, they haven't been back in nearly a year. We're hoping that kind of moves on, but these things, as they pop up, doing our best. That particular case, because it has a national reach, and that involved our federal partners.
Just to add on to that real quick. So my thought was, Ben, when I talked to the detectives and stuff over last year, whatever, that you guys are doing all types of cell phone tracking technology, which is awesome. I was excited to hear about the cameras. What I would be more excited about, you know, my understanding and my theory, maybe I'm crazy, but that a lot of these people are riding bikes up the Highline Canal, putting their bikes in the bushes, going, you know, a lot of this stuff, a lot of people that raised your hand, I'm guessing a good portion of you are right on the canal or real close as we are. We're right in Mansfield and Colorado at the end of the dirt road. So what my suggestion would be is twofold. Number one, if we could put cameras on the Highline Canal and in the dry canal when it's dry, you know, just in, you know, I don't know if a police officer monitors those 7 cameras all the time, or somebody does.
No, they get alerted right to their smartphones, to their computers, to their email.
So and the second part of that is you certainly see, you know, how concerned and how many people are willing to involve themselves with this type of thing. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people that would volunteer to watch, you know, cameras if you needed you probably have 800 people volunteer to watch a camera between, 9 and 10, or whatever. If there was more of these cameras along the Highline Canal and or different spots where we think they might be coming in.
Yeah, and the fact that you mentioned the trails in particular, the group that we were just discussing, that was their MO, right? As they come in off the trails, typically target the rear of a house, second story in many of them. And that Chilean gang, that was their MO around the country. So thank you for saying that, because that is certainly a different group than what we're currently dealing with, how they come in, how they approach, how they arm themselves, all the things are different. Part of our investigative process is to analyze the details of those crimes to try to, collect information, but also categorize the groups likely responsible. So as far as the cameras go, we certainly are evaluating those kinds of technologies. The drone, to be totally honest with you, the initial idea behind the drone was to fly the High Line and the bridle paths specifically for that purpose. It's one thing to see somebody kind of walking their dog in the middle of the night. It's a different thing to see somebody creeping along the High Line or a bridle path, right? And so again, just trying our best to implement those kinds of technologies for that purpose. But it's all being evaluated in terms of how we can work smarter rather than harder. Yes, sir.
Again, thank you for doing this. I do have some concerns though. I'm in Devonshire Heights, and based on what happened at my home on Sunday night, like your house, it's fortified, but they are not peaceful. To me, it felt like forced entry and attempt. I would love to see the flock footage. I can almost guarantee, based on at least one conversation with another resident, that they were in our neighborhood. And it's not, locking your doors is one thing, but I do think forced entry is something they're trying to do. And I think because I've got 2 toddlers at home, and for the world, I'm trying to keep them out in terms of like them not leaving the house at night. But this was super scary. And I don't know if your team has access to that information, but I would love to talk with somebody just to kind of round out that. I don't think it's just Saturday night. I don't think it's just Monday. I do think it was Sunday night, and like the odds are pretty good. It could happen tonight as well. So in addition to locking your homes, like just be prepared. They will try to get in. I mean, my experience is just like yours.
Yeah, no,
That steel door, they tried to lift it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, you might remember when we're talking about the statistics around unlocked doors. I said that's the primarily how these crimes are occurring. It is not an absolute. We had a few attempted forced entries into these homes. This particular group works a little differently. The rate or the spree that we just kind of are discussing now, they actually were not included in those statistics, because I wanted to separate that out in terms of conversation between what we see typically throughout the year versus this spree. So I totally agree with you. There are those things. In terms of Devonshire, you can chat with me offline on that. That information is protected through CJIS and crime information, so national crime information. I can't share it with you, like the photograph of the stolen vehicle or wanted people or any of those things that are protected. But I'm happy to chat with you and let you know what we found.
Okay, I'm on the HOA board, and they've asked me to see if we can figure that out.
We can absolutely have a conversation with that. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time, and thank you all as well for all your time and energy. I just wanted to know a little bit. I really appreciated the statistics you provided, but I was also curious on what the clearance rate was. I know maybe this year is too early, but like 2022 or whatever you would have, just because kind of as you mentioned, in terms of the flock cameras, getting them out of, they would tell their friends, they wouldn't attempt again. I feel like clearance rate would be another thing that would prevent crime, because if people thought they'd get caught, then they wouldn't be coming.
Yeah, that's a great question. You will see in our strategic plan, one of our measurements is clearance rates. And actually the benchmark cities provide data on what those clearance rates ought to be per crime type. The reality is, previous to me getting here, we did not evaluate clearance rates. We didn't statistically evaluate that. So I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of a product that exists, and we certainly could go back and do those on certain types of offenses, but they don't exist department-wide on all categories. But they will certainly moving forward, because it is outlined in our strategic plan. I'll get you, ma'am, and sir.
I
don't know if you can answer the question or not, but given this crime spree that is running from north to south, east to west, do they hit an area and keep returning, or do they hit it one time and move on to another one?
That's an excellent question. I would say by and large, it's singular, and then they move on to the next thing. I suspect, just sort of from a criminology standpoint, this certainly, I say this, but I think you understand what I mean, it's anecdotal. If the getting is good, they might come back. Parker has been hit twice, but not that close together. Cherry Hills, having been hit twice in 48 hours, that's a first. That's a first. The other, and that again, that is part of, we don't have everyone's data from all 12 agencies being collected at a different level, but I'm sure that will come out. The day of week, time of day, and method of operation is all part of that statistical analysis. It's an excellent question. And I suspect you asked because
I live in Charlotte,
Yeah.
right south of the houses that were hit.
Yeah, and again, we are, as a result of what happened, we are increasing to the best of our ability, increasing the resources that we have in the field for a lot of reasons. One is to protect the city, make you feel safer, and the greatest deterrent is visibility. And the more officers in black and white cars driving through the city is one thing that we can do to help create a deterrent. And some of those other things, again, are anecdotal, but we're doing our best. It's an excellent question. Ma'am, I've got you next.
Since have people been accosted with this group since they are coming in armed? And I'm wondering, with the increased patrol in the evenings in the village, are you finding people who are breaking into unlocked cars?
That's a great question. Now, I'll tackle your first one first. And again, I can't statistically support this, just in conversation with the other investigative agencies. This group, they believe to be the same, have had confrontations with homeowners. They've also had confrontations with the police. Now, I say that assuming that, and the assumptions are these are the same group. It's not definitive, but if not the same group, similar groups have had some confrontations with homeowners. Part of your question, I'm sorry, was have we found more people breaking into cars? The answer is, while in progress, no, we've not. But we have displaced a tremendous amount of people who are here in stolen vehicles or wanted people because of our camera system. As they come into town, we locate them, we try to make an apprehension, and they flee. And I guess, again, anecdotally, maybe the displacement would create, over time, will create a reduction in those kinds of things happening. But the in-progress stuff, not typically. These crimes are almost always spree-like. They come in, they move very quickly, they hit our community, and they move out. And therefore, albeit for ingress or egress, it's hard to capture them while it's occurring. Yes.
So, and I was a victim of a burglary back in November, different group, MO. But given the nature of the crime that we have based on your presentation, and given that what we're all concerned about is burglaries, which happen at night, I appreciate that you've shifted more resources to the night already. And I know no one wants to work at night. It's not a pleasant thing, but do we need to look at shifting resources from the day to the night when these types of crimes tend to occur?
Yeah, so it's certainly part of the evaluation process. So we have, and things will clear up a little bit. So we have 2 officers that are part of our staffing model that are still in what we call their field training. They have about 4 weeks left, 4 weeks. And once they kind of get released on their own, it'll give us an idea of how much we can shift. Until then, we are doing the best we can with the resources we have, changing people's hours, bringing more people at night, deploying that technology, having undercover vehicles, just in an effort to bridge the gap until we have these 2 folks out of training. It's a great question.
So Chief, if I can, I keep going back to why we're not tapping into patrol resources that have been offered to you.
Well, thank you for asking that again. Let me clear this up. The patrol resources are not being offered to us. They can barely staff their own jurisdictions. What are being offered are specialized services, like emergency response or K9, or technology like additional drones, those kinds of things. Patrol, we are actually, as I mentioned, we're the only fully staffed agency. To ask Greenwood, and I talked to Chief Arney today many times, and he said, I can give you anything except for cops. Right, and that's no fault of his. These chiefs have obligations. And, again, there are 12 other jurisdictions that we know of that are fighting the same issue with the same particular group. So the resources that are being offered are things that we can't provide. They're willing to provide it on a mutual aid request kind of basis, like, hey, we had someone that fled, they're in this wooded area, send us a K9, as opposed to, I'll just send you some additional cops to cover your street. That's not where we're at. Yeah.
I'm on Random Road next to my nice friend here, and sandwiched between her and the one that was hit twice, once on Saturday and then on her night Monday. And my question is more about information dissemination. So it would have been so wonderful if on Saturday when the car was stolen, for a quick Random Road shout out until you get your technology, so that Liz would have locked her door, so that I would have locked my door. I go out and take care of my horses at 11 at night. Maybe I would have done that at 9. Every night I'm out there feeling safe, and I wouldn't have felt safe if I knew that they came on that Saturday. And then they came again, and we heard nothing. I don't know about people in this room how you heard, but the way we heard was my sweet neighbor was like, hey. And then another neighbor also on my street was like, hey, my Pathfinder was attempted to be stolen. So we had 3 on our street. And then someone up on Vista was like, hey, look, check out this Nest video. And then someone on, and it went like that. It was sort of like whispered down the lane. And it seems like everybody here maybe had the same experience. And so could there be an information dissemination plan in the interim between now and when you get this technology, not a Amber Alert, but just a geographic.
Yeah. No, I could not agree with that statement enough. I mean, communication is key, and it's certainly been a priority for us. If you don't know, we recently just launched our own Facebook page as a way to connect with you. Having said that, it's been around for a few months, and we have 70 followers. So if you're on Facebook or social media, please hit us up. I mentioned that the position that starts Monday, part of her responsibilities is social media. So all the platforms, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, those kind of things. You'll never hear me say that we did enough communication. Having said that, Saturday night, Sunday morning, when these things were reported, although important, right? The auto thefts are of significant value, and the burglaries are certainly of value. We had no information at that time that these were armed events. Certainly, it would have escalated our need to do that, as you saw when we did find out after the second hit. Essentially, we established that press release to put that out. Now, there are folks who have said to me, it was, yeah, we saw your press release. Do you think that was a little much? I might have, please just bear with me. Maybe you created a little hysteria. And I will say this, everything I do, every decision I make is an evaluation. Risk versus benefit, right thing, right time, right way, right reason. Everything I do, every decision I make. And I contemplated what I thought was the right thing, whether I put that out. And what I decided is a few things. One is it's our narrative to write, and if I have information that armed people are in this city and I don't tell you about it, and God forbid something happened, I don't know, it would be beyond my ability to look at myself in the mirror. 2 is I will never apologize for telling you the truth. about what's happening in this community. I'm as transparent as I possibly can be without damaging the integrity of a criminal investigation. Our communication reach right now is not as good as it should be. And I'll take full responsibility for that. I apologize. We're putting technologies in place in an effort to reach more people more timely. Yes, ma'am.
Would it be possible to just leave here and put our little cell phone number and you could just say, hey, Random Road, heads up.
Here's what we can do, and I think tonight would be really amazing to do, because Chief Lyons and I and city council members have talked about communication. My name is Jen, and I've done data analytics for crime statistics, and I've read every crime report from 2006 to 2021. I know a little bit about crime here. I've also had 2 break-ins in my house. I woke up one night at 2 a.m. to someone trying to strangle my old parent. So I know a couple things about Cherry Hills Village and what it takes to be here. So what I'm asking today, if you guys want to be notified, Chief Lyons can do bulletins. And we as a city have a system called Notify Me that we could go through tonight on this computer. You can, without your phones, we can help sign you up tonight. We can all do it as one ginormous group. Because right now, only 350 people are on Notify Me. And you can get alerts from city council. You can get alerts from the police department. That would help Chief Lyons communicate with you. I think part of the criticism he's receiving is unfair because we have to take some responsibility and partner. We've had Notify Me for years. It is time that we communicate. They're not I am too, and we did not get a bulletin. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I got this article from the former officer, Corey Stack, who was shot. And that was horrifying to me of saying, I said, Corey, do you know what this conference is about? Because when we have something like this, something bad has happened. I'm surprised. He sent me this and he said, eerily similar to what happened to me. And I said, yes, you're correct. So that is where we needed a bulletin, but in the future, now we know, and now we can sign up for Notify Me. There's only 350 people on it. You can go to cherryhillsvillage.com and sign up for police department bulletins. And what I would ask of the police department is we want more communication is what I'm hearing. Because it doesn't feel good when your neighbor's been broken into and we've been gone all summer and also we come back and it's horrifying to wake up to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or to go out that night and absolutely go in the street with a gun.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for saying that, Jen. Here's the truth. There is a systemic failure that occurred, and ultimately, although it's around the website and around the Notify Me, these things are my responsibility. These things fall squarely on my shoulders. Saturday night into Sunday, on Sunday, we don't have anybody here that slings our website, right? They can get in there and make those modifications. I'm fixing that. We're tasking somebody with all of their community connections. Nikki, who I introduced as she stepped out earlier, her primary job is to liaise with this community and effectively communicate these kinds of things. Until these mechanisms are in place, what I would ask you, if you are on social media, follow us. If you'd rather just get the news alert, how to do that better. This is my issue. This is my responsibility. Historically, when we have property crimes that occur that aren't part of a trend, we usually don't communicate those things out. Lesson learned for me. Lesson learned for me. I have the same meeting with city council. I'm not used to a community who is as concerned about what happens as you are, and I thank you for that. And I've got some work to do on my end to fix some of the systemic issues that are out there. Just trust that it's happening. To the degree that we can make possible, those things are happening. You will see more communication from us as we implement these technologies. And I ask you to connect back with us. Follow us on Facebook. If you don't follow mine, follow the cities. They share our posts. It is a work in progress, right? It is a way to kind of build that foundation. I'll get you next, sir. Yes, sir.
How much of you guys' frustrations and the frustration of the community gets to the governor's police office to address the root cause of all this happening versus, what you guys doing to solve it.
Before the chief answers that, I'll say we'll take about 15 minutes more. And then I know the chief and the staff need to get out in the field and protect your people. But hopefully we can wrap this up. I also just want to acknowledge the council members that are here tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Randy Wheel, Councilmember Earl Holland, Councilmember Susan McGuire, Councilmember Randy Alblum, sorry. I've only been here 6 weeks. And Councilmember Dan Sheldon. So they are as committed to this as our police department. So I just want to acknowledge that they're supportive of you and hopefully this is going exactly as you anticipated. And with that, I'm going to let Chief finish up and we'll try to be out of here in about 15 minutes.
I want to answer your question. Well, I appreciate your question, and I'll break that into two parts. One is, we are frustrated. And to be totally, I won't get into the politics part of it, but I will say this. I don't live in your community. None of us do, in fact. But serving you, beyond being a husband and a father, serving you is my greatest honor. And I take it personally that this happened. I'm frustrated by it. This is not a woo me kind of thing, but I don't sleep well when this community is not protected. That's the truth. And I can tell you, the officers feel the same way. They take it personally. They have a job to do. And although you can't be on every street, every minute of every day, in every neighborhood, they do their best. And they're frustrated that this has occurred. Any type of crime that happens in this community, big or small, violent or not, we take it personally. We're frustrated.
So what are they doing?
Politically or who?
Well, I mean, to me, the root cause of this is happening a lot. It's happening in different neighborhoods.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into how and why crime occurs. And I think I'll have you read between the lines on my response on this. And I've had these meetings. For what it's worth, I meet quarterly with the district attorney's office, all the police chiefs and all the elected officials, the district attorney, our federal partners.
They gotta be tougher when they discover things happening.
Listen.
They're letting them off the hook. My wife's car was stolen from our garage.
Yeah.
6 months later, they found the guy who ran drug thing. They said we could go after him, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. You will not hear me disagree on this. There has to be accountability for criminal conduct. I will say this, just until a few weeks ago, Colorado was among the only states in the country, one of maybe 2 or 3 in the entire country, that has some level of auto theft as a misdemeanor. And then we wonder why there are no consequences to these types of crimes. Again, I will not make this a political conversation. It's neither here nor there. We still have a job to do. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. But I do want you to know that we take this personally. Even though we're not residents and we're not victims of what's happening, the fact that any of you are, or that you go home tonight and you have to have that tough conversation with your 9-year-old daughter, or you have a fear of walking your dog at night, devastates me. Devastates me.
Can I ask, you said there were all these other municipalities that had the same, was Cherry Hills first, second, third, fourth? I mean, was there something that happened weeks ago that then it happened here, then it went to Longmont, then it went to other?
It ebbs and flows. I mean, I can go back, and I'm just guessing.
This specific spree, this
Right, no, you're asking. No, like I said, Parker was on the news, Parker was on the news 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, talking about this same group. It's been going on a while.
And they were armed.
They were armed.
So these are all the same, and you're saying group, meaning
To say they're the same.
people,
Yeah.
or, okay, the same kids, the same outfits, the same backpacks? I mean, we saw pictures that were very distinctive, so it
Yes.
seemed
So,
like.
okay, thank you. Let me frame this. To say it's the same group is an investigative analysis. I want to be careful to say yes or no on that. I'll simply say that we are looking at a group of as many as 20 people that may or may not collaboratively be doing these crimes together. Now, please just bear with me because you don't have to be careful to say. How do we know that they're related? Well, I just had this question the other day about Broomfield. Broomfield had a recent issue, and we know it was the same because they used the stolen car from Charlotte to commit their crimes in Broomfield. So we know that it is the group that's traveling. How many? We can't give you an exact number. Estimates, intelligence gathering, it will to say that these sprees are so similar in nature, both by description and modus operandi, and what they're doing, what they're taking, how they operate, that it's reasonable to believe that this group is associated. And that's, I can't keep going, but I appreciate your question. Sir in the back.
I want to understand, you said that Doug Kushner's office made an arrest with this group, and was it connected to the things that happened in Cherokee Hills?
No, they made arrests several weeks ago with a person who they think is part of this group.
This larger group?
Yeah. Not since our weekend. I'll take a couple more. Yes, ma'am.
What are these guys, this particular crime group, after? What are they after? What do they want?
It's kind of a laundry list, to be honest with you. I mean, we've had cases where just property's been stolen. We've had cases where the cars have been stolen. We've had cases where a weapon has been stolen. It's as typical as would be typical for criminal groups. They take anything that they think is of value that they can move out of the city with, right? So you don't typically find, because we know that at least for a period of time on foot, they're not taking the big screen TV because it's hard to kind of move about, but they're taking things of value, and it literally is an entire list. Right? It would be hard to designate specific kinds of property. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the certain for doing this. The confrontations that they've had, has anyone gotten hurt? And I'm beyond sick over this. What do I do if they force entry into my home? I feel like I'm a sitting duck right now. So let's say worst case scenario, they force entry into my home. Here they are armed. What do I do?
And she has a beautiful home. It's all glass, right across the street from mine.
And we just moved. Like I am beyond sick over this. And I do think on Sunday night, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking someone was forcing themselves into my daughter's door. And I thought I was crazy because I had no idea this was going on. And then I found out about this. So, I mean, obviously I will call 911 next time. But I don't even care if they steal my car. What do I do when they're in my home and they have a gun?
Listen, that's a fair question. Challenging to answer, so I'll try to tackle it in a couple different ways. Beyond the obvious that we kind of chatted about, right, which is having your experience.
Right.
So mitigating the opportunity, the attractiveness of it. And I'm not saying that every target is just like got a sign that says break into me. I'm not suggesting that. But what we know about crime and how criminals behave is that if we can mitigate the opportunity, that's a good first step. Keep your lights on, keep your doors locked, fortified as is possible. Set your alarm system, take all of the valuables inside. Is it 100%? No, nothing is in crime reduction. It just isn't. It's just a way of mitigating that opportunity. In terms of if someone were to get into your home, it's an impossible question for me to answer. It's like asking me, how do I survive? And I don't know that I can, through nomenclature, somehow give you a good answer. I will say that, and I'm not advocating, but I get questions a lot about laws around defending yourself. And so I'll just say this, the law is very clear. A homeowner has no duty to retreat. And two, if you find that you're in danger, or you could reasonably articulate that you are in danger of death, imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, through whatever the variables are, right? if you can articulate reasonably that you're in fear of death or great bodily harm, you have a right to defend yourself, however that looks for you. And I can't, as the police chief, stand up here and say, you should do, everybody should get, I can't say that. I'm saying that we all need to protect ourselves, even in a city as safe as Cherry Hills Village, because we're not immune from these sprees of occurring. We're just
Did
not.
those people that were confronted, did they get hurt? What happened? What were they-
I don't believe anybody's been hurt, and I don't know the degree of the confrontations. Again, because they're from other agencies, we've got one portal bringing all that together. And I don't know, Jeremy, if you know if there's a meeting coming up. I know you've been talking to them every day, but
Yes, we are meeting again Wednesday, next Wednesday.
to go over the collective information, right? So we'll do this then, but it is an ongoing kind of thing. I have not heard that anybody's been injured as a result of these confrontations. And I don't know exactly what those confrontations have looked like, but I've not gotten anything that suggested that there was any injury. I'll
So
take
if they
three.
discharge their guns at all when they've had these conflicts, or do we not?
I don't know. I suspect that will be part of your meeting on Wednesday. The question was, has there been any exchange of fire or discharge of those weapons? And I think as Douglas County in this particular case is pulling all of those reports from all of these different agencies, that picture will become clear. Now, what we do know is what I shared with you, which is that more often than not, this particular group has no problem exposing the fact that they have firearms. And you've been raising your hand. I am so sorry. I apologize.
So my family has puppies and teenagers. Both of them like to be out at night. What time have these crimes occurred? I'm afraid to take my dogs out, to use the restroom before bed. I'm making my teenagers come home early because they have to get from the garage to the house. Can you help us with?
Again, just to give you a little ballpark here, because I knew that question would come up, and I think it's a relevant question. The one Saturday night into Sunday morning, it was somewhere between 11 and 1 a.m., kind of in that ballpark. The ones from Monday night into Tuesday morning were later, between 2 and 5 a.m. So unfortunately, because different days of the week, different times of day, predictability becomes a little bit more challenging. But entirely, at least from my understanding, all the cases, entirely during the nighttime hours. Unfortunately, now we're looking at somewhere between 11 and 5 a.m., which is essentially all night, right? I probably didn't help you at all, but yeah. Yeah. I'll take three more questions, ma'am.
Yes, Chief, first of all, thank you so much to all of you. And if you want to get your officers out on the street right now, that might be a great idea. We can just ask a couple more questions of you.
These people worked all day.
Yeah, I know. But the footage I've seen, there were two groups of four, as far as I can tell. One group of four was all in black, one group of four was all in white. Do we have any reason to believe that there are more than two teams of four that are doing this in our village?
Yeah, it's challenging to say, given the size, the suspected size of this particular group, how they travel and what numbers, it's going to be hard to predict. We've seen similar situations related where they come in 2 cars deep, and they kind of they jump out of both sides of the vehicle and literally hit both sides of the street pulling on car door handles. Right? We've seen that probably more than not. So we know that they're coming in groups for sure. There was a situation in another jurisdiction Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and there were only 2 people caught on camera. Not to say that there weren't more, but that was what was caught on camera. So really, it's hard to predict. I guess it depends on how they're traveling at night, where in the metro that they're heading.
But do we know that we have not had more than 2 groups of 4? I mean, or is that something you can share with us? Is there because of the proximity and the time and geographic settings of when these have occurred? Do we have
you think that we have had more than?
No, my sense is based on the video that we've obtained, both from, well, video and still photographs. My sense is it's not more than that at any given time.
And
Just jump in, Tracy.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm out of
You can only get one
That's
word.
okay.
I apologize.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service and for bringing all of us together to be a task force for you and with you. I feel knowledge is power. I actually was part of helping you find a neighbor's stolen vehicle. So it's just power is working together, but power is having knowledge. And I went on the live crime map on Tuesday, and there's crime all around, nothing in Cherry Hills. Yeah. And I agree with Susie, who spoke about the text. I actually went on the text program after an au pair in our neighborhood was raped, and I was home with all my doors and windows open, working quietly by myself with my husband gone out of town. Not one word from the police department. That was alarming to me. I feel like that was a couple of years ago, prior to you being here. So to me, I just want to be able to be a part of the protection task force. So when the current SMS system is not working, so I'm really excited about this new system being implemented. And if you can, it would be just so super to alert us that just some activity is going on around us, so that we have people that are elderly, that are living by themselves, that we can help them come and we can go to their. So we all want to help you, help our community.
Thank you so much for saying that. The public facing, I have never touted that because it's not functional. The system that we are currently demoing has a forward-facing, public-facing integration that allows you to see as near as real-time as we can tell the offenses or crimes that have been committed in the city. It also has that immediate release of information. They kind of come up as like little press releases, which is really cool because we're all dialed in electronically. And I really appreciate this, and I actually appreciate that council's here. It is something that I've been evaluating for the next budget year, but I think given our situation, I think time is of the essence. Implementation sooner than later is probably important. I don't want to, I have a budget, but I'm a pretty good steward of public funds. I'll find a way to make that happen sooner than later.
One other thing I wanted to say about the black cameras, if I'm understanding them correctly, that if they're not alerted that the vehicle is stolen. So when a vehicle is stolen and you all don't know it's stolen, the black camera doesn't alert you.
So it won't alert unless the vehicle's been entered into the national database as stolen.
Right.
So if it just happened, we will get a picture of it driving away, but it doesn't create alert because it doesn't match with anything yet.
Right, so these cars that were stolen in the middle of the night, the homeowners don't know until 10, the block cameras
Yeah.
aren't picking it up during the day.
Exactly. Now they hit on every other city's cameras the next day because they've been entered into the system, right? Which has been at least productive in terms of investigative benefit. But yeah, it's got to compare to a database. Again, piece of technology is helpful, but it's never going to be a perfect system.
Yeah,
right?
just that encouragement for all of us to alert you.
Thank you. I'll take two more, then I am respectful of your time.
With the communication piggybacking on hers, if you have systems that you know don't work, and we all are sitting here thinking that we're signed up for systems, and I'm gonna get a notice if something's happening in my neighborhood, could you let us all know that we shouldn't be having any faith in those? And what we should be signing up for? I had no idea there was a police Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty dialed in. But it would be nice, maybe in the village prior to list, like, these don't work. Please sign up.
You're absolutely right. I mean, in fairness, particularly with the link on the website, I didn't know it didn't work. I should have known because I've not pushed any citywide communication out on anything other than social media. So that is something that I should have known. Currently we have somebody else that kind of web slings for us, and we'll test that. And if it's not working the way it should, I'll deactivate it. You're totally right. There's no excuse for communication failure. This lies squarely on my shoulders.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Two more. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. In any of these instances
Or they not even activated?
I do not believe off the top of my head, I can get back to you, but I don't believe that they sent.
We can't.
I can tell you that we've had other burglaries in the city, over the course of the year, where I asked those very questions because they were like just sort of blatant burglaries. And the answer on, not all of them, but on certainly the lion's share was that the alarm existed, but was not set. And I can't, again, please don't mistake what I'm saying. I'm not speaking for this latest spree. I'm not sure that I certainly haven't analyzed it. The detective who has doesn't believe so, but we'll certainly look into that a little deeper. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any kind of neighborhood watch, set up in Cherry Hills?
No, there isn't, and to be totally honest, neighborhood watch, as you might know it, around the country is sort of becoming obsolete. It's going virtual, and the young lady in the back suggested the sharing of cameras, and that's where a lot of neighborhood watch ideologies are moving toward, where instead of people getting together on a block party kind of thing with a block captain, those additional responsibilities, what we really need to do, and I could not agree with you more. I mean, this position that I have, this community engagement position, has been in the works for months to get to the point where we could do these things. I saw it coming months ago, and we put a plan in place to make it happen. Is we have to increase our bi-directional communication, us to you and you to us. And those mechanisms have got to be put into place sooner than later. This rests solely with me. I'll take two more, Jen. Well, because I'm a giver. I don't know what to say. Just one more?
I want to say, Lance, I totally appreciate you, and I think that you are the right person for the job. And as a person that has had crime and has run data analytics, I have a lot of faith that you are going to take care of this. So I want you to know that from me to you. Also, my one ask is that when we had $2 million surpluses in budget, and we're having crime like this, I have a hard time hearing that we have enough officers. Because I know our officers, and I know that they are stretched thin with this 12-hour shifts. Officers, there is funds, the American Rescue Plan funds. I'm just going to put it out there. We have $1.48 million left about that can be used for public safety. We have been harping on this since 2022. It is not your fault that those funds have not been given to you. But I'm saying we need more resources for public safety. If you need more officers, I'm asking you to ask for it and demand that. We need you to advocate for us with the city council. City council, we need that American Rescue Plan money to be activated for public safety possibly. That money is important to our safety. If you do not feel safe in your home, why do we live here? We all moved here so our kids could have more space, go to good schools, and feel safe. What I'm hearing from everyone is that we do not. So maybe we go to city council and we ask for more funds for you. We want to advocate with you to get more funds. That's what I'm asking. Can we be a?
I appreciate you saying that. Please. Thank you. Staffing is always an interesting situation. What is enough? I mean, I would love to have double the staff, to be honest with you. I use methodologies on deciding whether we're staffed appropriately. Relief factor, one is calls for service, one is response times. The other one is these benchmarks called officers per. And that is a way to kind of gauge how a city has equipped its police staff to respond to its populace. The average in America, it's been a long day, you can imagine. The entire United States is 2 officers per 1,000 people. The range for the Rocky Mountain region is 1.6 to 1.75. We are at 4. So in terms of statistical, not that should be in and of itself the only piece of the puzzle, but it is a piece of the puzzle. So for me, I am constantly evaluating the need. And again, I'll speak for the city on this. Every single council member that is on this sitting council has asked me, what do we need? And do you need more people? And my answer to them is, I'll let you know at budget time, because I am evaluating. constantly evaluating it. What do we need? Where do we need them? What job functions should they perform based on the needs of this community? So it is, for what it's worth, it is a constant analysis for the police department to look at staffing. I appreciate your advocacy for that. I really do. Like I said, you can't ask the police chief in this country, can you use more people? And they go, oh, we're totally good. But it's certainly something we have to evaluate. Okay, it is, yes, ma'am.
I know that you're, we don't care what the statistics are nationally. I think what maybe people are trying to say, oh, that's what I'm hearing from, is we want more officers.
Yeah.
And regardless of what the other jurisdictions or areas. are
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like I said, it will all be a part, a piece, a part of the analysis. Because I have to justify your funds. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank
I'd
you
like to
very
thank
much.
Myers and all of his staff for being here tonight. They're available for you, they're a resource for you, feel free to call them. And thank you all for coming.